relationship between total product and marginal product. And again, we're talking about the short run here where some of these factors of production are fixed. So, we've already sort of talked about this this phenomenon on the previous slide, but now we just have a graph that goes along with it. We know that up until this inflection point that happens at L prime here, the marginal product of labor is increasing. So here we have the marginal product of labor increasing. So as I hire additional workers, the additional output that each worker brings to the firm is increasing. And then I hit this inflection point, and the marginal product of labor starts to decrease because of diminishing marginal returns. So we have specialization going on here, and the diminishing marginal returns going on in this region. Okay, so that's sort of a graphical, that's kind of the graphical link between total product and marginal product. But now I also want to talk about average product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw the average product curve up here, and then we'll talk about why it has the particular shape that it has. That wasn't a good example. Let me start again. So if you are drawing this in your notes, let me say something. In my example, it's still not a good example, but I'll just let me explain to you what this is supposed to look like. This average product curve is supposed to look like an inverted U, and it's supposed to hit its maximum right here where it intersects the marginal product curve. And this is not, my example is not, maybe if I change the right-hand side of my picture, it'll be a little bit better. A little bit different. Fine. Okay, so the point is that this average product curve is reaching its maximum right where it hits the marginal product curve. I haven't explained to you why. I haven't told you why, but just make sure it's like that in your notes because we're about to talk about why. Okay. So, if the last worker that I hire increases output, if the amount by which they increase output is greater than the average productivity of workers when I hire them, that's going to bring the average up. So whenever the margin, we're going to talk more about this, but whenever the margin is greater than the average, that average is going to be increasing. And whenever the marginal worker is less productive than average, the average is going to be decreasing. Now, I'm not going to go through, I have this thing called the average age game that I usually go through in some detail, but I'm not going to go through it in as much detail this year as I usually do. But just imagine that, what do you think the average age in this room is? Maybe 18? 19? 18 or 19? If your mother walks into this room, what's going to happen to the average age? It's going to go up. Because the marginal person walking into the room is older than the average person. So when the margin is greater than the average goes up. That's all we're meaning here. If the last person that you hire is older than the average person, the average age has got to be increasing. Okay? Or if the marginal worker is more productive than the average worker is going to be, the productivity of the average worker is going to be increasing. All the way until the point when marginal productivity, in this case, marginal productivity drops below average product. So if my 5-year-old walks into this room, what's going to happen to the average age? It's going to go down. So if the marginal worker is less productive than the average worker, the average is going to start to fall. Okay, so that is the reason why the average product curve hits its maximum right where it intersects the marginal product curve. Because whenever the margin is greater than the average has to be increasing. And whenever the margin is less than the average has to be decreasing. That's the basic idea. Okay. Questions about why it reaches its maximum here? Okay. Good. Okay, so let's talk about costs in the short run. Okay, and everything that we, again, just to emphasize, everything that we've been talking about so far is in the short run. Some of the firm's factors of production are fixed. My friend is stuck with the number of ovens that she has. She's stuck with the floor space in her kitchen. She's just trying to maximize her profits. Maximize her profits. Subject to this constraint that she can't. There's some factors of production that she just is not going to be able to vary in the short run. Okay, so let's do some definitions. We're going to go through a lot of these definitions, and we'll go. Hopefully, we'll eventually draw some pictures that will make sense of them. Okay, and so the plan is here. We've talked a little bit about firm's production and so the production technology. Now I'm going to talk about the costs, and then I'm going to show you how that production technology links up with the costs in a few slides. We probably won't get to it today. In fact, I'm sure we won't. But on Monday, we'll talk about the links between production and costs. So I've said what I want to say for now about the production technology, and now I want to move into talking about costs. But costs are obviously going to be related to the firm's production technology. So we're going to have a lot of terminology here. There's really nothing for you to do other than just start to learn this terminology, because it's nothing to do but memorize it. And there's a lot of it. Okay, so what are some of these terms? First, there's total fixed cost. That is the sum of all payments made to the firm's fixed factors of production. So what is a good example of this in the context of this bakery? My friend has a lease that she signs on her bakery, on the building where she runs her bakery. It's a year-long lease. The payments that she makes every month to her landlord, those are fixed. Those are some of her fixed costs. She has to pay them no matter what. Even if she produces no bread, she has to pay her monthly rent. If she produces 1,000 loaves of bread every month, she still has to pay that same monthly lease. Okay, that is a fixed cost in the sense that it's a fixed factor of production, and it's the total fixed cost is supposed to be the sum of all of those payments made to the fixed factors of production. And these are things that you're going to have to pay for no matter what you actually produce. Variable cost, this is the sum of all the payments made to the firm's variable factors of production. So for the bakery example, one of the variable factors of production we thought it was labor. So in the short run, it's relatively easy for her to hire and fire workers. She can change the number of workers that she has. She can change the amount of flour that she's purchasing. She can change the number of chocolate chips that she's purchasing. The sum of all of the payments to those variable factors of production, that's just total variable cost. And that is obviously going to depend upon how much she produces. Right? If she produces more bread, she's going to have to buy more flour, and her variable costs are going to increase. Her fixed costs won't, but her variable costs will. Total costs, that's just the sum of fixed costs and variable costs. So that one's actually pretty easy. Marginal cost is going to be the cost associated with a 1 unit increase in output. So if she produces an additional loaf of bread, how much do her total costs increase by? That's going to be marginal cost. Okay, so there's going to be some cost. Every time she produces an additional loaf of bread, it's going to require additional inputs. There's going to be some cost associated with that. Yeah. So your question is really, really excellent. Her question was, when you're calculating marginal cost, do you think about total cost or do you think about variable cost? And the answer is it doesn't matter. Okay, because as you increase your output, your fixed costs stay exactly the same. Okay, and so when you increase your output, your change in your variable cost is exactly equal to your change in your total cost, because the only thing in your total cost that's changing is your variable cost. Because those fixed costs are fixed, because they don't depend upon how much you're actually producing. So when you think about marginal cost, you can either calculate it from total cost or you can calculate it from total variable cost. It's all the same. Okay. Tell you what, why don't I stop here and we'll jump back into this on Monday.